Hello and welcome to the APS30. I'm Monica Armenta, Executive Director of Communications for Albuquerque Public Schools. So happy you could join us. If you've watched the show before or you're new, you may or may not know that the whole purpose of the next 30 minutes is to share with you a lot of exciting things that happen within Albuquerque Public Schools that sometimes you don't always hear about. I'm pleased to have two guests today with a number of things to talk about. A couple are going to be in local media, one in national media soon, but we wanted to be able to tell you here at home so you could pass the word and be able to share some of what's good in APS. So please help me welcome first Dr. Chris Muir. Dr. Muir, Chris, I'll call you Chris during the show if that's okay.
That's great.
Chris is the Executive Director of our Student, Family, and Community Supports Division, which is huge. We'll talk about all the areas that covers today because a couple of them will be spotlighted. And we have one of our prized principals. We have Peggy Candelaria with us, and Peggy is the principal at Manzano Mesa Elementary, and we're going to talk about a program called Homework Diner. And we'll get started there first because there is sort of partnership here, not sort of, but Homework Diner was done in conjunction with a number of partners, including people from Chris's office who were involved. So if I remember correctly, it was the first week of December 2013 when NBC Nightly News came with Chelsea Clinton and a crew of about 23. The network always travels with a big group. They have a lot of people employed. And they came to spotlight Homework Diner. Peggy, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about what Homework Diner is and why that program specifically has received so many accolades.
Homework Diner is a after-school tutoring program in where we try to service the whole family. So it's run on Monday evenings, and basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to think out of the box, and we're trying to service the whole family where we're providing academic support for students, but we're also feeding the family while they come to tutoring and teaching the parents how to actually help their kids do homework themselves later on in the week.
And it's a more formal approach maybe than the usual dinner, right?
Yes, yes. Well, when we first started, we were doing things like trying to, my community school coordinator, Deanna Cook, was making big trays of lasagna and big trays of enchiladas, and because we really wanted to have home-cooked food, and we really wanted to deliver a place where families could feel comfortable. We didn't want to order pizza. We didn't want to have box sandwiches. We wanted to have real food. And it's just really evolved from that. And now we're in partnership with CNM, and we have CNM intern chefs who are in the culinary arts program who are cooking homemade meals in our cafeteria and delivering restaurant quality food to our families. We didn't want to use paper plates. We really wanted it to be home away from home. We wanted to go back to that whole idea of sitting at a table, partaking of dinner, talking, communicating. It's not always just about the academics, about the homework. It's about getting to the heart of the child in all ways. So how was your day? What's going on? Who are your friends? When I first got to Manzano Mesa, I really felt, I've been there 7 years. It was a new school. It had been open 3 years. And having grown up in New Mexico, being, seventh generation New Mexican, growing up in the North Valley, school was the hub of the community. Your grandma went to school there. Everybody knew. When I got to Manzano Mesa, it didn't have that atmosphere. It didn't have that culture for me. So it was like, how are we going to make this the hub of the community? How are we going to make this everybody knows where the school is? We had no alumni. So I was really, really trying to grow those roots. So we wanted to get to that. Who are your neighbors? Who do you live next to? Who's vecina? All of those kind of things. And so now students are able to come with their parents. We have older siblings that come, middle school students, high school students, and they're asking for help with their homework now. We sit down, we have a meal, and students are provided tutoring. Back to the paper plate comment. So we wanted to have real plates. So when my gifted teacher, Kathleen Parker, went to thrift stores and started just buying plates and real forks and real spoons, and now so we have a real eclectic feel and style to it.
The shabby chic.
Yes, yes, we do. But it's really, really nice because it's a real meal and a real community.
So how long has Homework Diner been in place now?
This is the first complete year. So we started with a pilot, and so now we're in the first complete year.
Okay, Peggy's giving a shout out to
Oh, sorry.
Deanna Cook, who's also joining us in the studio today and one of the big forces behind Homework Diner. So thank you to Deanna. So tell me a little bit about in the time that the program's been in place and what you've been able to observe. You talked about a number of things that you'd hoped to achieve. Primarily that this was a way to get families back together, to visit, to connect, to be able to share things that they didn't. Do you feel that you've hit that mark? Is this program accomplishing that?
I definitely think so. We're currently accommodating around 100 people a week that are coming to Homework Diner. And I think what's really, really powerful is that it's such a unique program in that there's a lot of collaborations with outside entities. You know, so we partnered with the Roadrunner Food Bank. We partnered with CNM. We partnered with ABC Community Schools. We partnered with APS and different departments. So it's a lot of collaboration. You know, it's a lot of working with everybody to support the family. Another thing that's really neat is that the middle school kids are coming to bring coming to eat, and then they got comfortable enough where they're saying, you know what, is there anybody here that knows algebra? Is there anybody here that can help me? And so then now they're feeling comfortable to be able to get the assistance that they need. So we're helping the whole entire family. We have a group of mothers that are in a GED program at our school. They all sit together and they do their GED homework there. So it's just really empowering the whole community in lots of different facets. We really didn't even imagine that it would get this far. It's just grown and grown and grown, and everybody has an idea. Someone will have an idea and we'll just go with it. Well, how can we make that work? What can we do? How can we improve it? So it's been very powerful.
I lose track. We're a big district. I think we're now at like 144 schools, and 92 or 93 of them are elementary schools. But for people who aren't as intimately familiar with Albuquerque Public Schools, tell us a little bit about the demographics of Manzano Mesa. It is an elementary school in the far southeast heights of the city with a population. Where are you at now? How many students?
750.
Very diverse.
Yes, very diverse. We have 10% of our population is actually Asian, which is the largest population of Asians in the state of New Mexico. We have a lot of diversity. We have 7 different languages in our schools. We're an ESL school, Title I.
ESL, English is a second language.
Right, sorry. Yeah, so very diverse.
So I'm going to ask Chris at this point, because you're the head of a department we've already said that we call Student, Families, and Community Support Division, which covers so many programs. I'm not even going to attempt to list some of them, except we're going to talk in a little bit about the clothing bank and a recent project at Pajarito Mesa. But when you look at a program, when we look at a program within the APS leadership at Albuquerque Public Schools, it works as well as Peggy's does, as well as Homework Diner. There's that natural desire to want to duplicate it across the board. But there are challenges. I think Peggy mentioned that the partnerships are incredibly helpful here. What other things? Is it primarily an expense issue? What would allow us to grow programs like this?
I think there's a couple things, Monica, that you mentioned. One is obviously expense. You know, how do you get the money for a program? How does that happen? You have to have committed administration, like Peggy. You have to have a committed principal that they really want the program. So the leadership is critical at the school if you want to expand anything that's happening. We look at the successes of like Peggy's program and what Deanna has built there, and we do a lot of presentations. They're part of our community school group. And so Deanna's spent, and so has Peggy, spent a lot of time actually talking about Homework Diner to the other community schools. One of the advantages of community schools is they have a coordinator, like Deanna, who's the coordinator that can actually go out and within that community find those partnerships. And so to build what it is. And so if another school wants to duplicate what Peggy's doing with Homework Diner, they can learn from their successes, things that worked, didn't work, and how do you do that. And so we spend a lot of time trying to bring it into schools that might want to duplicate it. I know that Peggy and Deanna are going to actually be presenting this at a national conference. So not just within APS, but even nationally, we're sharing our successes. But always the question is, how did you make it happen? And so it really has to do with the champion, with leadership that's willing to say, go for it, and how can I support you in that? I think that building those partnerships at Peggy's school has a lot to do with Peggy. she's a go-getter out in her community. And so sharing those kinds of things. And we know that principals' slates are absolutely full, but it takes that kind of a personality, that kind of a want to make it happen. And then us at City Center and our administration also begin to look for those connections that we can make and begin to move those forward.
One of the things I've been fascinated about in my relatively short time in education is how much of what we find out really works, really makes a difference on the ground level with students. So much of it is academics. I don't want anyone to, misinterpret what I'm saying, but so much of it isn't. Mm-hmm. So much of it is outside the classroom, which I think is really fascinating to understand, because we don't always take note of that. In your program, well, there are opportunities, it sounds like, to get help and to identify, if there's trouble here or there. Primarily, this is an exercise that connects the students on other levels.
Absolutely. Again, I think having a strong community and having that root base and students to really feel that they've connected to the community. I hardly have any vandalism at my school. We don't get broken windows, we don't have graffiti, because it's their school. They feel ownership there. Mm-hmm. And it's supporting the whole family. A lot of times I think in education, when the kids walk through our door, we see them as a student. We see them as somebody that we have to educate, somebody that we have to get prepared for the workforce, all of those things, which is true, but they're actually a person as well. And they're multifaceted, and there's lots of different components that's going to make somebody successful, not just academics. So we have to support that. If you come in and you're hungry because you didn't eat, you didn't sleep well, or you're homeless, or lots of those things, it's really hard to learn your multiplication tables. It's really hard to read, have to learn how to read when you have all these other factors. So I think it's our belief and our philosophy is if we can help with all of those other factors, that's what a community school does, then we can get to the meat of the work, which is to educate our kids.
Right. Well, congratulations to you, Peggy, because I think I wish that so much of the public was able to really get to know so many of our principals. It is hands down, being a principal is hands down one of the most difficult jobs I've ever seen. And you do a wonderful job in what you continue to do for your students. And when you talk about, not just the academics, but again, the challenges, whether it's food insecurity, clothing, all those things, you really have to take all of that into consideration. Schools are just different places than they were even 10 years ago. Absolutely. And I think that one of the things that Albuquerque Public Schools does a phenomenal job at is really addressing so many of those. I'm going to talk to Chris a little bit now about the clothing bank, and I know that so many of your students have benefited, so many others. Over the years here in Albuquerque, just for a little bit of backdrop on the clothing bank, the PTA had run a clothing bank and serviced over the years tens of thousands of families who couldn't afford clothes for their students. We are right now in Albuquerque Public Schools somewhere between 64 and 66% free and reduced lunch. That means that that percentage of our families qualify for assistance in feeding their kids at lunch. That's a big number anymore, and it's a reality. And once you have that sort of landscape, there are other issues, there are other needs. So the clothing bank was run for years by a wonderful woman in Albuquerque named Kim Kirshen and others who gave their heart and soul and a lot of time to taking in the donations, sorting them out, doing the marketing, getting families in, and it finally became too much. And Albuquerque Public Schools stepped in late in 2013 and actually took the clothing bank on as another division of the district. And Chris, if you could tell us a little bit what that means and how it's going to benefit our students now.
And Monica, you're actually right. The state PTA was running the clothing bank, and they did a great job with it. And as you said, they ran into some financial difficulty and could no longer continue it. And so APS did step up and say, we'll take it over. And so we've done that this year. We're in the midst of sort of reorganizing. We have a very robust partnership now with Goodwill that the PTA started, and we've built on that partnership. Any kid that needs clothes, any staff member at a school can request it, and we give them gift cards to go to Goodwill and get clothes. With this partnership, even if we haven't done a fabulous job at a certain time of the year of getting clothes in, which we still need to have happen. We need clothes coming in. Goodwill has made the commitment to honor all of those gift cards, and hopefully we can make it up in the future. So we're working through that. We're also making sure that clothes that can't be used, like socks and underwear and shoes, that we have a new supply of those on hand to give to kids. Coats for kids right now is a real big thing, because as the weather is still very cold out there, and will continue to be, we want to make sure there's coats on our kids' back. It's changed up a little bit. We have hired a full-time coordinator for the clothing bank. The PTA was only able to do part-time people, so we were able to get a full-time coordinator in there to help us coordinate and do all of the work that needs to happen. We're going to have donation bins now around town. So there'll be one at City Center, one at Montgomery Complex. We're looking somewhere into the Northeast Heights. We haven't found a spot yet. And one over at Shoes on a Shoestring on the west side, and one at the clothing bank itself. And so we'll have other opportunities for people to donate. So they don't have to go all the way down to the South Valley just to donate clothes. They can come to different places to do that, and be able to get more clothes on kids' backs. We started the new order form process 2 weeks ago, and we've already serviced over 200 kids.
Wow.
So it's been working. They've lost some where the busing the kids to the clothing bank has stopped, but the plus side of that is kids are staying in class a little bit longer now, and they still can go shopping, but with their families now at Goodwill to get the clothes. So it's very exciting. I think we're moving in a good direction, and we do owe a lot to the PTA for what they started, and are saddened that they couldn't continue, but happy that we're able to continue making sure our kids have clothes.
And a big thank you to Phil Casals and the APS Education Foundation, who also helped us transition from the state PTA into now the APS Clothing Bank. And again, I think that so many of our students struggle with poverty, because that's what it is. I think it's silly not to acknowledge that that is one of our biggest challenges in this state. I'm a native. I say that over and over again. I'm so proud to be that Northena, New Mexico girl, but I also understand the state I live in, and I certainly understand the challenges of our kids. And when I see some of these programs, what I'm most proud of is the fact that we continue to find new ways to sort of break some of that stigma. I love from this plan that you can take a gift card in and you can go on your own, and there's really no reason. Just as we've changed so much of our meal plans, where it used to be years ago you went through a certain line if you were qualified for free and reduced. Now there's a whole different method of making sure kids get food in their bellies so they can study and concentrate. I think I remember you saying that under this new program with Goodwill, students will actually be eligible for 3 new outfits.
3 new outfits 3 times a year. So actually 9 new outfits a year. So they will do it in the fall, in the winter, and then again in the spring. So as the seasons change, outfits, clothing change, so they can get 3 new outfits out of Goodwill 3 times a year.
And we just had a presentation recently where we had lots of questions asked. The best thing for viewers who may be listening and want to help and make a difference is to call either your office or get on the web, and we have a whole page dedicated, I think,
Yes.
to our clothing bank now. So one more topic on the issue of poverty, for people who've lived here any length of time. You may or may not be aware that there's an entire community in southwest Albuquerque. We've gone from, all the way in southeast to Peggy School, now over to a community known as Pajarito Mesa. Pajarito Mesa, not an ideal place to live. They still don't have electricity in many cases, no running water. We became concerned after hearing some safety issues with kids who attend our schools, and this is a perfect example again of partnerships. Recently we've had, I won't say yesterday because folks may be watching this at different times, but we recently had a big celebration to commemorate, thank, and point out what partnerships can mean when we opened and before and after school center there. And you certainly were at the heart of all that. You want to tell us a little bit, Chris, about what that project is and how it came to be?
Sure. the project of Pajarito Mesa, as you said, it's a community, and if you go down Pajarito Road, it sort of ends, and then dirt starts, and the only roads in there are really sort of roads because cars have traveled it, and we have Pajarito Elementary School, Polk Middle School, and Rio Grande High School. That community all feeds into those schools, and they have to come out of the mesa just to catch the bus. And the bus stops where the sidewalk, where the cement stops, the road stops, because the bus can't get in there. So kids can be traveling a mile to 2.5 miles just to get to the bus stop itself and travel to school. What was discovered, and La Placitas was the first, they're a community organizing entity out there that began to bring it to the attention of one of our board members, Dr. Annalise Maestas, that kids are waiting out there for the bus in the dark, when it starts getting darker, in the cold, in inclement weather, with no shelter. Several years ago, a portable was donated to the county. It's the county's land. To try to do some programming. The county didn't have the funding to do it, and it was sort of put on hold. And some of our folks went out there, Dr. Winter went out there to try to see if there was some way we could do some kind of shelter for those kids waiting for the bus. And then we looked at the portable and said, wait a minute, is there something we can do here? We've got a building. And so it started with the safety of the kids. You know, they shouldn't be waiting out there, not just for the bus, but once the bus drops them off, waiting for their parents to come get them, or having to walk miles into home. And so we looked at that and said, why can't we try to do a before and after school program here so that they're inside, not just safe, but actually extended learning is happening. So this was the quickest thing that I've ever seen happen, especially when you have the county, the city, the state, Albuquerque Public Schools, and many, many private partners came together, and within 6 weeks, we opened a before and after school program there. It's still in the making, but we had the grand opening just recently, and the kids are there, they're safe. Just a quote from one of the kids, asked one of the elementary school kids, how do you like the program? He said, I love it. I don't have to stand out in the cold anymore, and I can actually do my homework with the lights on. So it's that kind of a thing, it's that basic. And so Dell Industries stepped up and has donated computers. People have just stepped up to donate things, to help that community. It's going to become a hub of the community, a true hub. It's going to be truly a community center, not just a before and after school program. It's an extension of Pajarito Elementary's after school program there. The state stepped up to help us get funding. We'll have to figure out sustainability funding within the next couple years, but it's taking off. And there's still a lot to do, but the kids are out of the cold, they're in a safe environment, and they're learning. They're getting enrichment activities. And so we're very proud. Rio Grande Educational Collaborative as our after-school provider in there, one of our better, one of the best after-school providers we have. All of them are good, but they've been doing it for a lot of years. They were able to do it instantly because they had enough people on staff to put people there. A funny story was we were doing this in November, and I was sort of leading a group, and somebody said to me, well, how soon do you want this to happen? And this was the middle of, I said, December 1st, and I could actually feel the room sort of shake. And I said, okay, let's make it Christmas present. But it ended up opening December 9th. The doors opened December 9th. That's how quickly it happened. You can talk to any of the county commissioners, any of them, and they'll say, we have never seen anything where government officials had to come together so quickly and make something happen, and they did it. And so I'm very proud and very thankful for all the partners.
It is a fascinating conversation that could go so many ways, but we don't want to leave the impression. We've talked about different programs now. Peggy, yours that meets the needs of an entire school. I think you said 750 now?
Yes.
Your enrollment at 750. We've talked about Pajarito Mesa. We've talked about the Clothing Bank. And then also within APS, I think one of the big misconceptions out there sometimes is that we deal with just poverty, which is of course not true. Right. We are as diverse as the state of New Mexico itself. Right. There are all sorts of needs, but we run everything from the English second language learner to as many as 13 languages in one elementary school that I'm aware of, and all sorts of options. We had one of the previous shows focus on our new schools of choice, where we continue to encourage people to check out our IB program at Sandia High School, one of the most academically aggressive and competitive schools that you'll ever find, to Longfellow, where Spanish is still spoken. What do we call it? Bilingual?
Dual language.
Dual language. I get confused with some of the point is, we
Right.
cover everything. I think if there's one thing that I'm also very proud of to say is that one of the best things about Albuquerque Public Schools is that our doors are open to everyone. And through the programs we talked about today, and through what you find in the classrooms throughout this city, you really become aware of that. Of course, you become aware of the challenges too, but I think we have so much to be proud of, and I just want to thank you both for being here and sharing some of that knowledge, because unless you're an employee, or you have a family that benefits from a program, or someone who will benefit from having access, you don't always know. Is there anything in closing that you'd like to share with our viewers that might bring some more light to what we've talked about today?
I'll go ahead and start. I think that the last thing I want to say is, my division, as you said, is very diverse. Counseling, nursing, all kinds of programs, coordinated school health is within one division. But we see ourselves as the support, not the umbrella, but we don't want kids falling through the cracks in any of the areas that you're talking about. We've got kids that need alternatives, and we don't want to lose them out of APS. We want to help those kids be successful and come to school. And what we know is that healthy kids make better students. And the better students we have healthier communities. So it's a huge, the circle of life. We want our kids to be successful. And I think that APS is really, I'm proud to be part of APS. We've stepped up in big ways to make that happen for all of our students.
Thank you. Peggy, anything?
Yeah. Again, our jobs are very, very difficult, but all of my colleagues, all the principals that I know, we work very, very hard for our kids and for our community, and we do it because we love it. And the slogan, the mantra at our school is "Together we can." And that's really what we mean, that it's not just the responsibility of the principal, it's not the responsibility of just the teacher, of just the parents, of the students themselves. It's all of our responsibility. And even if you're a grandparent and all your kids are gone and your grandkids are grown, it's still your community. And go to the local school that probably can use you. And we need to really support our kids and our community. And APS has been a phenomenal place for me. I went through APS. I now work for APS. My children are in APS. And it really is, it is a great place. And just together we can.
Yeah, the Junta se puede is a really good slogan. Well, I feel completely energized. I'm so glad that you were both able to join us on this program today, and thank you for everything you do. Sometimes I think you probably will never know how much that work means until probably years to come. So thank you both. You've been watching APS 30. We're so grateful that you were able to tune in, and we'll have a new topic for you next month. I'm Monica Armenta. Thanks for joining us.